Welcome back to The Long Way Home. I'm your host, Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different, kind of a special episode. I meant to do this at the beginning of the school year, but it's a little later than I meant to, but it's still in the school year, and I think we can still we can use it as a stepping stone to further episodes throughout the year. And what I wanted to talk about was teachers. Specifically, I want to talk about some of the teachers that had a big impact on me throughout my time in school. Some of the experiences that I've had as a parent with kids and the teachers of my kids, and the fact that teachers are drastically underpaid. So I want to start with, I go back to I don't remember a ton of teachers through my school years, right? Most of the time, most of my teachers were just normal average teachers. They were there, you showed up, you did class, you learned some things, and you moved on. You know, I kind of remember, my kindergarten teacher's name was Mrs. Workman. I remember that. She's on a video my parents filmed on my first day of school. I've got a video of my first day of school. And they walked me in, and they go in the classroom, so I see the teacher on there and hear him talking and everything. So that's kind of cool. But and then my first grade teacher was Mrs. Pitts. I mentioned her on a previous episode, talking about she used to do this thing with the snacks once a week, where she would have a snack and she would give the whole class hints, and we had to guess what it was. And if you guessed what it was, you got to hand out the snacks and have any of the extras that were there. So those were a couple of early influential teachers in their own little ways. But other than that, as far as elementary school is concerned, I don't really remember most of my teachers. Flashes here and there. They're things that we did, in, I think it was fourth grade I was in, where we had a class project is what it wound up kind of being. A friend of mine, we decided to start during our free time. We had indoor recess on rainy days and that kind of thing. And we decided to start drawing this map. And it was this imaginary city that we had. We would draw the roads and the schools and the houses and different businesses, fire departments, police departments. It was, if you ever played Sim City, it was kind of like Sim City, but a drawing and just imagining whatever we wanted, And by the time we got through, it was probably a good month that we were working on this. We got more and more people involved. The map itself, we were taping together pieces of paper to expand our map. And the map itself grew to almost the size of the classroom. We would fold it up when we were all done at the end of the day. And I don't know what happened to that. I assume it probably got thrown away, most likely. But it was a really cool little project. And we had so many people. And it just started with just me and this friend of mine. It was a lot of fun. But I don't remember the teacher's name because the teacher didn't have a big impact on me. I'm sure there was probably moments that different teachers did throughout my time in school, in elementary school, but it wasn't as big until I got into really middle school was when I started kind of having some more influential, more impactful teachers. And not all of them in a good way. One of the teachers that I really didn't like at all was teacher Mr. Dembinski, I believe was his name. And he was my teacher in, 6th and 7th grade, or 7th and 8th grade for history. And I had him back-to-back years. And the reason why he sticks out the most to me, two reasons actually. One, because I was really religious at the time, and I argued with him because he was giving us the Latin for what AD meant. And I was arguing with him that, no, it means after death because, it's after Jesus died. And he's like, no. There's Common Era and then AD, but it was weird. I don't even know his full reasoning, but I didn't like him for that. But then on top of that, it was around the time that I was getting, my mom had met my stepdad, and he was planning on adopting us, but it hadn't gone through yet. So our last names were still what they had been before. And I wanted to put my new last name down on all my papers. And most of my teachers were cool with that. They were like, yeah, that's fine. That's awesome. Congratulations. We're glad you're happy. But Mr. Dembinski, he was a completely different kind of asshole because he's like, no, Whatever it is in the system, that's what you have to have it as on the paper. I don't care what you want it to be. And like, I think now, like, you imagine nowadays the situation with like when you have trans students or when you have people that are in the class, they're like, I prefer to be called this. And the argument that people are having nowadays, I was having that argument with a teacher back in the late 90s. And it wasn't because I was trans, it was because I was changing my last name, getting adopted. And that was something that was happening legally. And he was still like, no, we can't do that. You know, I can't imagine what he'd be like today if he's still teaching and if he had a trans student come in. Like, that would probably just blow his mind. So that was the not good teacher, the one of my least favorite teachers of all time. As far as middle school goes, like, there wasn't a ton of other teachers in middle school that really had a big influence on me as far as like sticking out. And that's the thing, is like, I think everybody throughout your time in school, you probably have at least one teacher that you can look back on. I think everybody should have at least one teacher that you can look back on and say, that person positively influenced my life in a big way. And for me, I've got a couple of those in high school. One was when I was still in Mount Vernon. This is before we moved. And it was my freshman year, I believe. Yeah, I think it was my freshman year was the first year. I took this, it was physics. No, chemistry class. Something like that. It was one of the sciences. We dissected pigs, so it might have been biology now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, this teacher was cool as hell. I believe she was Miss Beatty, if I remember correctly. Her name doesn't stick out as much as the fact that she had a chinchilla, which, like, how cool is that to have a class pet and to have it be a chinchilla? And if you've never been around them, they're like, really hyper gerbils, I guess. They're a little bit bigger. I can't even properly describe it. This thing would run around the classroom, just everywhere. We had to keep the door shut when it was out. She would normally keep it in the cage, and sometimes she would let it out. And we had to keep the door shut when it was out, and it would just be scurrying around, run all around the class. It was the coolest little thing. And we would get to pick it up and hold it and pet it. Just a class pet in general, I think. Everybody should have a class pet. Class pets are just awesome, all right? So that was one of the reasons she was influential to me. The other reason was because I love science. And so I was constantly challenging, constantly asking questions. And I know to a point where, like, sometimes drove her nuts, but not as nutty as my physics teacher. And this was a physics teacher. When we moved to Grove City, I had a teacher, Miss Airy. And she loved and hated me at the same time because I would have the biggest debates with her. Here's this 11th, 12th grade kid arguing with this teacher. She had to be in her 40s, maybe her 50s. She was a little older, but she was cool as hell. And I would argue with her about the physics and like centrifugal versus centripetal force and what forces were acting on things as they were rotating, orbiting around. And like, we would have just, and she's trying so hard. The amount of patience she had with me to just be like, no, that's not the way it works. I'd be like, but it doesn't make sense. I eventually got it. I eventually figured it out. But if it weren't for her patience, if it weren't for the fact that she was willing to let me have my say and then come back around and almost ask questions like, why do you think that? And kind of elaborate and get more detailed on things. There was times I would derail entire classes because, like, I would bring up something that I just thought was insane that I didn't understand fully. And we would go the entire class. She would have one thing planned and we would go completely off track. And the class is just sitting there, like, half of them are glued to, like, what she's saying and what I'm saying, going back and forth because it was just an amazing thing. And it was just so much fun. I loved that. That was one of my favorite teachers of all time. If I could give an award to one teacher, it would be Miss Airy. She unfortunately passed away years ago, but she was definitely one of the teacher that probably had the biggest influence on me. And then another one that she had an influence on me in a way, although I can't to this day pinpoint exactly what it was because she kind of infuriated me. She infuriates me now as I think back. At the time, it wasn't. I was still young, right? We called her Miss O because her last name was long and hard to pronounce. But she was one of the more liberal teachers that I had. She was the teacher that like the conservative parents are always afraid of, like, oh my God, she's gonna like teach our children tolerance. Like she was one of those kind of teachers, but she was a writing English teacher. And English class, I hated English class, which is weird because I'm an author now and I love writing. But like I hated doing assignments for English class. They drove me absolutely insane. Even the creative stuff, because I didn't really like writing when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. But she would give us these assignments and have us do these assignments. But the thing she really stuck out for me, and the one thing that I think back on that still sticks out in my mind was I wore glasses in middle school or in high school, and I didn't want to, right? I did not like, I didn't feel like me wearing glasses, right? And that was a lot of it's a stigma and people making fun of wearing glasses and, oh, 4 eyes and stupid shit. And if you looked around, you see all the cool kids were the ones without glasses. They were the ones that got all the girls and all that kind of stuff. So I was not comfortable in my own skin, and I wasn't comfortable with the fact that I wore glasses. And I don't know if she knew that for sure, but I was going to a dance with my, at the time, girlfriend, and Mrs. O, she was like, "Oh, hey, if you get some contacts and put on a nice suit, you'll look real good." And I was like, that just crushed me. It was like, really? I'm already in my head about this whole wearing glasses thing. I didn't have the confidence. I have a ton of confidence today. The glasses are part of the look now. If you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm sitting here, I'm pointing it, but like the glasses are part of the look for me. And I am confident and comfortable in my own skin. Whereas 20 years ago, like most people in high school, I was completely scared of like having any kind of interaction with anybody. And I did not feel comfortable. And to have a teacher say, "Oh yeah, you should get rid of the glasses and wear contacts." Like, really? Can we not just get rid of the stigma here? Like, I don't know where that came from as far as like glasses are nerdy. The cool kids don't wear glasses. I don't know where the hell that came from. But like, really, that shouldn't be the case. And contacts at the time for me, I wanted them for years. I finally got them after I graduated high school. I wore contacts for years, and I struggled with dry eyes and all kinds of other problems. And then finally I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going back to glasses because contacts are too much of a pain in the ass. And there's times that glasses are a pain in the ass too, but I'm getting off topic here. So other than that, like that was the teachers. If I think back over my high school, my entire school career, but especially my high school career, like the majority of the teachers that I had that were any kind of influential were in high school. And I think that's kind of a shame in a way because part of it was just that I don't think I ever really saw teachers as anything more than just other adults, especially when I was younger. And adults in general were like, they were the rule keepers and they were the ones that would tell on you. And so I never really saw them or respected them for what they did or who they were. What teachers have to put up with is just insane from both parents and students. And especially now with students are getting out. They've been really bad since the pandemic, especially. Like, I feel like a lot of the teachers that I have talked to that have my kids in class, they start with, well, your kids are great. I love having them in class because they actually, are respectful and nice and good people. But there are so many kids that just will treat teachers like absolute dog shit. And on top of that, they're underpaid. Very, very underpaid. Teachers, we have a tendency. The athletes, the entertainers, the politicians, they get all the money. The teachers, the people that we expect to help educate and grow the next generation, they're kind of shafted. They have to buy their own supplies in a lot of places. Yeah, some of that's tax write-offs, but I mean, you're still paying for the damn supplies. And they're not paid anywhere near enough for what they do. And the hours they have to work, and yeah, sure, they get a couple months in the summer off, but I mean, come on. That's not nearly enough time for the bullshit they have to put up with through the actual 9-10 months of the year that they're actually in school. So it's insane to me how little we pay teachers and how it's no wonder nobody wants to be. I wanted to be a teacher. That was something that I had thought about, becoming a history teacher, because I love history. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because I don't have the patience to put up with the bullshit. I don't have the fact that you can barely scrape by, barely make a living, that teachers are disrespected by the students and parents alike. And don't get me wrong, there are teachers out there, just like any other profession, there are teachers out there that aren't the best. Perfect example, my son when he was in second or third grade, they had a homework packet they were doing, talking a little bit about recent American history and focusing specifically on September 11th and what happened after that. And this particular packet, I read through it because I'm a veteran. I was like, I want to see what they have to say about this in here, because especially living through 9/11, like, what's history starting to teach about it, right? In this particular packet, it said that after September 11th, 2001, the United States went into Iraq in 2002 to go after the people who perpetrated the attacks. And so I wrote a nice long paragraph on the back of it. And I was like, no, we went into Afghanistan in 2002 to go after Osama bin Laden and the Taliban. And we went into Iraq in 2003 because of supposed weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had. There were two separate things. And a lot of people connect the two because of the timing, but they were two very separate engagements. And the teacher apparently did not like that. And I'm imagining to myself, like, that's probably the teachers that'll be like, oh, the parent of this kid thinks they know more than I do. In some cases, that's the case. So this was a younger teacher, too. This was a teacher who had just started teaching at the time. And I was like, yeah, this isn't... you can't be teaching the wrong history here. And since then, I've been very good about telling my kids, like, hey, a lot of your teachers are going to be great and they're going to give you good information, but not all of it's perfect, and you can't necessarily go with everything that you read in the books, right? You gotta expand your worldview a little bit. You got to go outside of that. And some teachers are very good at making that point and making that clear distinction. Other teachers, for one reason or another, maybe they just have given up. Maybe they just hate kids, but for some reason decided to become a teacher. At some point, they chose to get a degree and become a teacher. So at some point, they wanted to teach, and they don't all keep that. And I think that's a shame. And some of that, it goes back to just how we treat teachers in general. And, the face-to-face interaction has died off, at least for us in our district. They don't do parent-teacher conferences like they used to. It used to be we would get a slip home from the schools, the old place we lived when the kids first started school, saying, these are the parent-teacher conference days, select what date and time you're free, and then we'll get you in. And now it's just like we don't even get a slip of paper. We're lucky if we get an email like, hey, if you have any of your kids' teachers you want to meet with, just let us know which ones it is. And it's not even thorough when you do meet with them. It's like some real quick check the box type of stuff. And it's just, I think it's become overwhelming. I think we need to completely reform the system. We need to focus on teacher pay. We need to focus on ways that we can improve the schools in general, smaller class sizes, funding education and a better, more money to education. Because right now we don't put nearly enough money in education. I think we need to do that. That would be an amazing thing just to get us started, just to start things off, I know there's a million other things we can do, but this isn't a policy video. I'm not talking about policy here. I'm not talking about, everything. But I think for starters, if you are a teacher, first of all, thank you. thank you for choosing to go into that profession. And I'm sorry that you are treated as poorly as you're treated and that you are incredibly underpaid. You deserve more than we can ever even provide as a society when you choose to teach children. As a parent, take part in your child's education. You can help ease the burden on the teachers by teaching your children, first of all, to respect the teachers, to treat other individuals, other human beings with the respect they deserve. That's a big one. Your kids need to know that, hey, acting out, throwing things across the classroom, yelling and screaming and cussing at teachers is not acceptable behavior. And that's your job as a parent. I'm sorry, that is not the school's job to discipline your child. It is your job as a parent to teach them right from wrong. But also ask them, how was your day? What are you learning? What kind of stuff are you covering in school? What are they telling you about? And use that as a conversation point with your children. Because, hey, maybe the school is wrong about something. Maybe they are teaching something in the curriculum that isn't accurate. Because that does happen. They're not perfect. And there's a lot of economics and politics that go into what is taught in our schools. And that's a whole nother topic. But if they are wrong about something, sit down and don't just correct it. Don't just tell your kids, no, this is the way it is. Sit down, teach them how to research things, go online, search things up, find trustworthy sources that make sense, and correct the errors. Because that's going to teach the kids not only that authority can be wrong, but how to prove it if it is, or how to admit that you're wrong if you call something out. Say you're a parent and you say, well, no, that doesn't sound right to me. Let's go look it up. And then you look it up, you're like, oh, actually, they were right about that. Your teacher was right. I'm sorry. Being humble, being kind, these are all things that everybody could do with more of in society. Like, that's something that we need to focus on and really push, because otherwise we're going to wind up in a really bad place if we aren't treating the teachers right and nobody wants to be a teacher anymore. Where are we at? Where are we at in society if we don't have anybody that's willing to sit down and teach children things in a classroom environment? And maybe there's other options and there's better alternatives, but for now, this is what we have, and we need to do the best with what we have. So that's all I've got for this one. I kind of wanted to cover, the teachers, and it's something I heard mentioned recently in a couple of different places, people talking about teachers, and it's been the Department of Education and all that kind of stuff's been a big deal in this presidential election cycle. So I wanted to highlight teachers that had an impact on me and how I think we can do better for teachers in the future. So let me know your thoughts, your comments. If you're on YouTube, you can comment below the video. If you're not on YouTube, though, if you're on a podcast platform out there, there's actually an option now on the podcast itself that you can send me a message directly. And if you click on that and you send me a message, I will get that message directly. It is one of the awesome things about the provider that I use for my podcasting. So that is an option. You can let me know what you thought about the episode, your thoughts on teachers or any of my other episodes. If you just like the podcast overall, you just want to say, hey, great job, I love what you're doing, that's cool too. So feel free to do that. Like, rate, wherever you are, like on YouTube, rate the podcast, all that good stuff. Share it with people that might enjoy it, especially if you found it helpful, or if you found some entertainment in value, or maybe even some educational value. I don't know how educational these things are. It's just kind of me talking about things. But, if you enjoyed it, share it with people that you think might also enjoy it. So I do want to thank you all for watching or listening. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.